GingerGM.
Welcome to a long play Monday, and you're probably well aware of what's going to happen here. I'm playing a longer time limit where I can really explain my ideas, and you can jump into the mind of a grandmaster and try to learn something. So I'm playing, it seems, a strong Spanish player, and we have a normal Dutch opening here with me playing my normal line. So I think I will stick to the Dutch as it's my main opening. It has been my main opening all of my life, and you know, if you want to learn more about it, obviously you can buy the DVD Killer Dutch, $9.99, 8 hours, bargain. But let's see what happens in this game. Let's see what variations we come across. Now, there are a number of ways you can play with the Dutch with F5. There's three main ways. There's a way that I'm going to play here, and I prefer, which is generally with bishop e7 and d6, the so-called classical Dutch. Don't know why my opponent's taken so long here. It's a bit peculiar. There's the Stonewall Dutch, where you play d5, which I think is a very decent way to play as well. It's a very solid way to play, and it actually works quite a lot better when the knight's already on f3, because the best way to play against the Stonewall Dutch with d5 is generally knight to h3, knight to f4, something like that. The knight wants to come to this square. And the third way is the Leningrad Dutch with g6, which I've never really been an expert on, but hopefully I will get around to learn that one day. But let's just stick with the classical. So the classical bishop e7, castles is stage 1. Let's call this stage 1, where you get the king castle. So this is stage 1 of the classical Dutch. Now stage 2 is to play d6. This is the classical Dutch proper. And the reason you put your pawn on d6 is, well, you control e5, and later on you try to play the move e5. And now I have to decide what variation to play here. Now, I always prefer a5 or knight to e4. Now, queen to e8 is the third line, but I don't have as much faith in that. I think probably the best move here is knight to e4. So let's go ahead with knight to e4. This is the move which I've favoured to play in this mainline position over the last, probably 5 years. I've preferred this move. I've come to the conclusion this is the best move. The other options are interesting. I mean, a5 is certainly an interesting idea. Queen e8 is probably the most popular, but I don't really think the kingside attack ever works in the Dutch unless you have played e5. I think it's much more important to play e5. So why don't I play knight e4? Well, I'm slightly more cramped than white because I don't have as much space, so swapping pieces is good. Another thing which is very important is that the f6 square is now free, so I can play bishop to f6 at the right moment. But first of all, a5 is the correct way to play, because I don't want white to gain space with the move b4. This, bishop f6, b4 is quite annoying because white does gain queenside space. So I want to stop that. It's useful having a pawn here. In some situations, I have a sequence knight c6, and sometimes d5, knight b4. This knight often can slip into this square on b4, so this is another reason why it's quite handy. But my main idea is to play e5. This is the main idea. So my opponent is lining the rook up against the queen and basically saying, I'm gonna, if you ever try to play e5, I'm gonna take on e5. Now, a good rule to play against this move is just queen to e8, because your queen steps out of the way of the rook, and I'm really trying to play e5. So I want to play bishop f6, knight c6, e5. If I get these three moves in, I'm at least equal. Actually, I think black's often better in those situations if I can play e5. This is why I play the classical Dutch. I spoke to Geary about this, and Geary also agreed the classical Dutch is actually a very positionally motivated opening. So my opponent, when your opponent plays a move, what's he trying to do? Well, he's trying to play e4, and this is white's main break. Now, when he plays e4, as a rule, you should never really take on e4, because then after a piece comes to e4, you have this backwards e-pawn. When white plays e4, you either need to meet it with e5, or you need to play f4. Now, I can't play f4. f4 is generally not a good idea, but well, it's impossible when the bishop's on c1. When the bishop comes to b2, f4 is an idea, so I need to play e5 when e4 comes. So I'm going to move my knight to c6, and if e4, I play e5. I need to play this, otherwise I'll be worse. And we can now see why it's handy to have a pawn here, because one move you need to watch out for when you play knight c6 is d5. d5 is a move to watch out for. But then, if d5 now, knight b4, attacking the queen. If the queen moves somewhere like b3, I can then play the very important move e5 again, because this pawn defends my knight. It's very useful. If the pawn wasn't here, d5 would be a very strong move from white. Knight b4, queen b3, and my knight would be attacked. I'd have to move my knight, and then my opponent could go d takes e6, and you never want to allow that. You never want to allow this pawn to get swapped for this pawn on e6. And this is not good, because it's really a bad structure. The one thing we are aiming for in the Dutch is to play e5, like I say, and get 2 pawns remaining on those 2 squares. So if I can play e5, and if pawn takes, and get these 2 pawns here, this is the fantastic, this is the classical Dutch. This is something I've had numerous times throughout my chess career. Now, you don't need to worry about the bishop on c8. This is a piece that has a lot of future later on. Okay, so what's my opponent trying to do? So he's going bishop g5. Interesting. Now, if I take, knight takes, play e5, maybe he has some check here. I mean, e5, my whole point of this opening is to play e5, so why shouldn't I play e5 now? Let's just double check. I don't mind him exchanging dark square bishops. It's not a problem. And then maybe I'm going to go e4. So I think e5 is correct. Yeah, this is the move that this is the one move in the opening that you're trying to always play. If you can get this move in, I suddenly think black is certainly not worse in these positions. I prefer black generally when I get these 2 pawns here, because I've got these pawn breaks. I've got e4 and f4. Positionally, e4 is quite good. Now, what do I take back with here? You never take with the knight, because we get that pawn structure I just mentioned, which is very bad. White puts the knight on d4, and it's very horrible. You need to always take with a pawn, because this structure is much better with the 2 pawns here. Because, very importantly, this pawn coming to e4 is one positional idea in the middle game that you need to play. Obviously, I'll take the queen here, because the pawn coming to e4 achieves a lot of good things. It kills the bishop on g2. That bishop, which is quite a good piece at the moment, becomes a very bad piece. You often see endings even where this piece is dead. Now, this is actually going all according to a lot of plans I've had before. Now, e4 is a move I want to play. Now, f4 I don't tend to play in these middle game positions so much, because f4 is a move you play when you want to sort of generate an attack. It's interesting still, but white can take, pawn takes, and I don't think I'm ever going to checkmate. I mean, maybe it's okay here, but a much more positionally idea is the plan I'm going to play. Now, I want to play e4, but I don't really want to allow my opponent's knight to come into d4. It's a nice square for his knight. So in actual fact, a move which I've played on a numerous occasions is g5. Now, let me explain this idea. The idea of this is to go g4, force that knight to move away, and then to play e4. So I want to get my 2 pawns, one to this square, one to this square. Why do I want to do that? Well, first of all, when I push the knight away, I don't want it coming to d4. So I'm using my g-pawn to push it away. So that's reason number 1. Number 2, if I play e4 and the knight moves, my opponent often has the move f3 later on. And f3 is quite a good move because it gets rid of the pawn on e4. But the way I'm playing this now, if I play this move here now, I'm just wondering if the knight will come over here. I don't think I should fear that, but maybe that's an interesting possibility my opponent has with it trying to come. Okay, well, we're gonna play this one because it is a knight on the rim, and I shouldn't be worried about that. No, okay, we're not worried about that. So the idea of this now is, okay, the knight has to move, and I'm going to continue with e4. And this is a positional idea I've used in so many games, and we're really talking about the middle game now. I'm very happy. I've had this so many times. I've won so many games from this. Doesn't mean I'll win this one. But look what I've done. He can't move his F pawn now. Because if he can't, because I've got 2 pawns controlling that. I have killed the bishop, and I've given myself a lovely square on e5 for my knight. So this structurally is very nice. Very nice. Now, what do I want to do? Well, actually, the endgames I always find are quite a good way to play. But if I go queen to d4, maybe my opponent will put his knight on this square. I mean, the most natural move is to put the knight here, but I want to get my bishop in the game as well. You know, I like to get my bishop in the game. So I want everything if I can get it. So I can go bishop here, but then knight d4. And then I can go... I mean, knight here is so natural, but knight here, where do I move my bishop? Do I go bishop d7? I think bishop d7 looks okay. Maybe I can even go c5 and get rid of that knight. Because this knight... I want to get rid of the knight. I'd love to swap this bishop for this knight. If you remove these 2 pieces from the board, my knight dominates his bishop. Because how can he... The only way he can try to get his bishop in the game is on c4, but that's very, very hard. So I think I'm going to go for this logical move. The knight has to be good here. I mean, potentially, I have 2 lovely squares for this piece to dive into. I have f3 and d3. And the reason I'm moving a bit quicker in this then is I've had this kind of strategy all before. And this just shows you how important it is when you're learning an opening to know the middle game ideas and even the end game ideas. Now, I mean, and again, I might mess this up, but so far I'm happy with the way things have gone. Okay, so there's a couple of ideas. I mean, what I was thinking of playing is bishop d7, and then maybe c5 to try to get rid of that knight. Now, bishop d7, I've just noticed he might try something annoying like knight b5. Now, if I take, pawn takes, he has a little bit of pressure down here. Do I worry about this? Maybe I don't want to allow this. The other thing to play is c6, but I want to eventually get rid of this knight. So I think bishop d7 is okay. If he does go knight b5, I could always just put my bishop on this square. And slowly, I want to try and swap some pieces off. I actually want to get an ending. I've seen another idea he does have is move the knight here to f4. That could be quite an interesting idea of my opponent's here. And I might have to play c6 at some point. The one thing my opponent has got is a good queen. So actually, this queen's quite annoying. I want to maybe I can go queen b4 here. Let's just see if he takes, pawn takes, and plays knight b5. I go c6, he goes like knight c7. I think I'm happy there. My rook moves, and I try to... Yeah, I think his queen's very good. Queen b4 is actually looking like a good idea. Takes, takes, knight b5, c6. I like queen b4 because his queen is a very good piece. It's the one piece, and like I say, in these positions you actually want to get an ending. The ending's nearly always better for black. Black has a space advantage, and this bishop on g2 is bad. So actually you want to go for endings here. And queen b4, trying to force queens off. I mean, maybe I can at some point try to grab the pawn on c4, for example. Seems very logical. Very, very logical. This knight is actually pretty decent, I have to admit, though. So, I don't know. I mean, this looks natural. So, the critical line, queen takes, pawn takes. What would he play then? Well, if he goes knight c2, I come and take the c4 pawn. And again, the endgames I very much like. So, what I was saying earlier is, when you're picking an opening, books don't show you this, and rarely do DVDs. Rarely does any source of information. You pick an opening, and the book will leave you on move 15 saying slightly better for white, slightly better for black, but what they don't tell you is what plans you should be playing in the middle game and even in the end game, what structures you want. You know, with this game here, I'm hoping it will work out, but I'm really, the whole game sort of is pre-planned as such because I know what structures I want. This is certainly not the opening anymore. This is a middle game, but I know this is a pawn structure that I've had many a time that works very successfully. I know that exchanging queens is often good. I mean, whatever, even if I lose this game, this is the right strategy to play. And I even know what endgame ideas, if we get to an ending, I should be trying to achieve. So this is what you need to do when you're playing your games. You should, when you have an opening idea, you should really be following that all the way through. Really, you should be all the way through to an ending. You should be knowing what you're doing in an ending. Now, this is a peculiar move because it allows me to double his pawns, but he's hoping for action on the B file. But I'm going to swap queens. Let's swap queens. And the one move I want to play now is c6, because I want to take away these squares for his pieces. I especially want to take away knight to this square. And my idea now is to go c6. I mean, he's got a little bit of pressure against here. I want to go c6, king here, bishop e6, and go for this pawn. I mean, I can force the exchange of knights here as well, which is not a ridiculous move to play. But I think I want to keep my knight for now. Another thing I could be doing is trying to get my rook around to this square. But I think c6 is a good move. So I'm also thinking, what's my opponent going to be doing here? Yes, he can put a little bit of pressure on b7. But with my bishop on this square, I would have thought that b7 is never a problem. He hasn't got many entrance points for his rook, only d6. I'm not particularly worried about a rook coming here, especially as my king's probably going to come round anyway. He has b6, but I don't see how that helps him. His knight can go to f4. That might be a slightly better square for the knight, but he has to worry about pawns. So I think, first of all, now I'm going to think what my next plan is. Well, I kind of like the idea of putting my king on e7 for two reasons. Number one, I might be able to get my king to c5 in the ending, and then c4 is very weak. Number two, I might have an idea of going h5, h4 with a rook on h8 and getting some play on the h file later on. So it makes sense to me to move my king. Now I'm wondering if this move c5 helps him. Well, it doesn't really, because he can't get his bishop in the game still, because my knight defends it. So I'm gonna, I think, put my king here. I'm just seeing if there's any other ideal setups I want to go for. I mean, if I want to get my bishop to this square, I need a king on f7 as well. So that's a third reason to have my king on this square. At some point, I might try to put my bishop here, but then I'd need to defend b7 with my rooks. So I could try something like rook here, rook e7, and then bishop e6. And remember what I said, I want him to exchange his knight for my bishop. I love to remove these two pieces. My bishop is okay because it can attack c4 and sometimes a2. But his knight is clearly superior. Okay, so what's he trying to achieve with this move? Always look at your opponent's pieces and see what they're trying to achieve. I don't understand that one. Where's that knight going? I'm trying to work out where the knight's going. It's not going this way. It's not going this way. The only thing I can think that he's trying to do with this is to bring his rook in. So maybe he's trying to go rook here, but I'm going to go king e7. This is an improvement. Stop his rook coming here. And even if he doubles on the d file, like I mentioned before, there's not many entrance points for his rooks. My bishop defends this one, my rook this one, my king has a bit of this one, my pawn this one. So I'm not worried about him doubling on d file. This is another thing I found. If he does double, he loses pressure against here. So I can play bishop e6. So this seems like a very strange move to me. The knight was much better here. I mean, if he was going to move it, why not move it to f4, which is an okay square. It doesn't actually do anything on f4. But now, you know, I could have gone knight f3 check. This is something that may well occur later on. But I know we're coming to the ending even now, and I know from my experience of playing the openings, there's another thing I tell people: if you really want to get good at chess, pick the same opening and stick to it for your whole life. Maybe not your whole life, but 20 years, because then you'll know the endings. And rather than switching from opening to opening, this is such a simple way to improve. And I know in these endings, for example, I know plans like of trying to get rid of these two pawns. So I want to get rid of these two pawns. Imagine those two pawns are gone. Then I have rook here and I have knight f3, forcing checkmate positions. So this is another plain idea. Now a4 doesn't seem to help him so much, except it does stop me playing this move. Now I have a number of attractive ideas now. Swapping pieces definitely helps me, because the more pieces I swap, the weaker his pawns will be able to become. But I'm also thinking that maybe I should start just... this move is not doing anything, start improving my position. Pawn here, pawn here. This is also a very attractive idea. But I mean, I like rook d8. I mean, if I could get some position where I go rook d8 and then get my king to c7, then my bishop can come over here because I'm defending this square. So this is also very attractive. Rook d8. I mean, if I play here, he might go h4. And then do I want my pawn on h5? Because my pawn on h5 could be a weakness if the knight comes here. So h5, h4. I don't want to take on pass on. I really like having this pawn here. This pawn is very, very, very nice. So, well, the other thing is I could go rook here. I have to watch out for some knight coming into there. Let's have a look. So if I go rook here, knight d4, bishop e6. You know, I don't want to throw this position away. Rook b6. Bishop takes here. So it should be better for me. And if I go rook here, I'm just thinking he might move his knight back then. This is a slightly... I mean, I could also put my knight on c5. That's a very interesting idea. Because if I get my knight to c5... Now that he's put his pawn here, I attack that. I stop him playing c5 and I defend this pawn. That's very interesting. My knight on c5 could be very good. It's a pity to move it away from such a strong square. But on c5 it does cover this lovely b7 square, so my bishop can move. He has put his pawn on this square, which I don't necessarily agree with. So I attack this pawn on this square. And yeah, I mean, this now I can move my bishop in the game. So now my bishop can come here. Now you might get a little bit of pressure here, but that doesn't worry me. I'm going to move my bishop in. Let's get the bishop in the game. Yeah, this looks natural now. I don't know if that was a good idea. I mean, I wanted to just get my bishop developed. I mean, of course, he goes rook here. And I have to do something. Well, I don't have to do something with his pawn. I mean, he might want to go knight b3 and swap knights, but even then I'm not too worried because my king can come to c5. It should be good for me. I might defend this pawn anyway somehow. Now rook b8 is I mean, I want to get my king to c7. So what about I go king d6 here? King on c7 to me looks like the right place for the king. So king here, knight here. Then I can exchange knights and play rook b8 with the king coming to c5. But he has rook. Okay, so king here, knight here. This is the only move I feel he should play. Knight takes knight, rook takes, rook b8, rook b1, rook f7. Trying to just play king c5 and win like this. Should be okay to me. Okay, let's play this one. Let's play this one. I'm angling to get my king to f7 to c7. That seems like a very nice square because I defend here, so I'm going to play this now, I think. But I do need to think how I'm going to get rid of this knight, maybe. I can always exchange this knight for this knight off. Well, not easily, actually. So I might have to play c5. Okay, well, let's put the king on c7, I think, now. Just going to move a little bit quicker now. I don't want to get myself short of time. So, okay, so I got my king to c7. That I feel has helped me somewhat. Now, his knight is very good. You know, it's still a bit hard to make progress here. So I'm just trying to think of ways to do that. I mean, do I go? Okay, so he's gonna. Well, he can't double. Why? Okay, well, I think my bishop has done its job here. It's just a little bit loose. I'm thinking of just dropping it back, but maybe I'll play h5 first. Let's play h5. This move is always useful, like I say, to play h4. So I might now just go rook h8 and play h4. Because actually, it looks the queen side is well shored up for me, isn't it? I've got everything nicely defended on the queen side. If he goes rook here, well, I can just defend this pawn somehow. Maybe rook a7 is not so stupid. Okay, so he has gone for this one. Now, this is something I assumed he would eventually play. So we are going to swap knights. And now the idea of getting my king here is kind of key. Or do I take the file first? Let's maybe take the file first. Let's take the open file. Why not? Gives me ideas of coming into the 7th rank. I mean, his pawns are very weak. His pawns are a lot weaker than mine. And I always had the simple endgame plan of getting my king to c5. His one idea here is pressure against here. Okay. And I don't really want to allow him to play this move. Can I even play c5, which kills his bishop forever, and then put my bishop on c6? This is a very interesting positional idea. Yes, I can't get my king in. So hang on a minute. Here, rook b1. Rook b8, rook b6. Maybe I go rook a6. Very hard to break that position down. Maybe I can't win that position. Now c5 is just a move I don't want to allow, you know. Do I play this move? Rook b1, rook b8. It's not easy to win this. c5 is interesting, but okay, maybe I just don't want to play this move for some reason, so I kind of in two minds about my next move here. Okay, I'm going to play it. I'm playing it, and I'm in two minds about that one. I'm not sure. I mean, the idea in some ways to play c5 and then transfer my bishop here, because his pawns are on light squares. So in the ending, my bishop will be able to attack them. My pawns can't be attacked by his bishop. So I'm going to be slightly better. But in order to win this, I feel like if I close it too much, the position may not become winnable. So this is why I was in two minds about this at c5. I mean, I'd love to get my king to c5. This, you know, if I can go rook b8, king to c5, then positionally I'm winning. That's why I don't want to play c5. And you know, I'm certainly better, but this is quite hard to win. Okay, so he's playing this one now. I thought here that this ending gives me very good chances. So my opponent is going for, maybe he's just going for, oh, this is quite a crafty way for him to draw. I should have thought about this. I should have gone bishop c8. He's found a very crafty way to draw. He's going to just go c4, and I blocked it in too much. Nice play from my opponent. He just plays c4, and there's nothing. It's a dead draw. That's I moved a little bit prematurely there, didn't I? This is just dead draw. Even though I'm pawn up, it means nothing. I can't get my king in. I let the cat out the bag there after quite a nicely played game. Just a bit of a rush, and you know, this is a dead draw. I mean, I don't need pawn breaks. This pawn breaks, so what? He ignores it, you know, at the right moment, and get my pawn here. There's nothing, so I have to offer a draw here. You know, I'll offer a draw. You better take the draw. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm a bit annoyed there, I'll be honest, you know, because it was quite a good game. We'll have a look, and I want to see where I could improve. We'll whack it on the computer. I mean, still, I mean, if you think about it, okay, I didn't win, but I was always the one pushing, and I'm just going to readjust the board. I was always the one pushing, so it's certainly a triumph for the Dutch, that one. But obviously, I was a bit slack there, just at the critical moment at the end. I let my opponent right, you know, he found a very nice way to draw. Let's give him credit by sacrificing a pawn to draw. So I'm certainly going to give him credit for that. Let me just get the computer thing up, because the computer is not going to be that by the way, that good at evaluating a lot of these positions, because the computer doesn't understand the long-term positional ideas behind what I'm playing. But it might notice some interesting things later on, so we'll leave it on in the background just to have it. So I'm just going to go through the moves very quickly. Now, the opening is the opening. So this position, even though it says white slightly better, I disagree. I think black is fine, and we're going to go into here. Now here, I think black is better. I don't care what the computer says, and the computer is now saying black is on the slightly favourable side of better here. After e3, Well, this G5 idea is a move that computer doesn't recommend, but as we see, it works out very well because I get this nice grip. And now, everything seems to be going okay, I feel. Queen b4, nice. And around here, this must be better for me. But I didn't play this particularly well. So it doesn't actually like my c6 move. Maybe c6 was not correct to play. Maybe I shouldn't weaken this square. Maybe I should allow myself the opportunity of playing b6. c6 seemed like a very safe way to play. And, I mean, again, I disagree with the computer. I think only black can be better here long term with his pawn side weaknesses. He has to be very careful. And all this seemed very natural manoeuvring. a4 I didn't necessarily like. And, of course, it does just give rook d8 or h5 here. Both moves good. I mean, rook d8, I thought he'd just move his knight back. But then do I go why don't I see c5? Ridiculous. This is the move I want to play in a lot of positions. And this maybe is very, very good for me. When I say very good, I mean very good. Because if I can get rid of one pair of rooks, he never has the pressure he had in the game against this. So this ending after this is incredibly good for me, I feel. King c7, my bishop comes out, my king comes... It's probably losing, on the verge of losing for him, this ending at top level. And if he goes knight d4, of course, now I play c5. And the good thing about this move is his bishop dead. It can never escape. And what's this ending like here if we take everything off? Well, I think this is very good because worst case scenario, I can play here. And if I can exchange my bishop for that knight, that is the structure that I want to get. You remember? I want to exchange that knight off because then my knight kind of dominates. And later on, he will have trouble defending his pawns against my knight invasion. That's certainly one idea. So this would have been very, very good. I played my knight to... Well, actually, it does. As well as rook d8, it does give knight d7. So let's have a look. This wasn't a stupid idea. And all of this looked very natural. So I don't think I'm too critical about my ideas here. h5 is okay. Knight b3. He tries to exchange off knight. Simplify. And look, the computer still gives... It gives me a massive advantage now. So I've played this okay. And after takes... It gives rook d8 as one of its moves. Can't be bad, but maybe rook d8 was an unnecessary move. Yes, I get the open file, but at this moment he can't play c5 because his rook is on b3. So after this move rook d8, I help him play the move he wants to play. So if I play b6 first, this would probably be the much better way to play because now he can't play c5. So, for example, I think rook b1 is natural. I play rook b8 to defend. And what does he play here? Well, let's say he moves rook b2. Now I have an extra tempo on the game. And the move I was thinking about playing, a safe move, is c5. And the computer gives this as a big advantage because I'm going to slowly try to improve. But I think he might get a blockade here. I mean, the bishop can come here. Let's say he now plays a very good move h4 before I play h4. How do I break through? This might not be easy at all. Okay, the computer says double on the d file, which makes a lot of sense. So here, something like here, 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 here. But this is still very hard to win, no? I kind of feel, how do I break through here? So, even though I always had the advantage, sometimes the advantage is not enough to win. And in the game, well, my opponent now played excellently. And he played very, very well. This move, I think, is an excellent idea. And after taking here, well, I played a very big mistake. This is where I'm a little bit annoyed myself because, you know, I should have seen what he was planning here. And the only way I can try to keep this game going is by defending this and not exchanging it. So rook a7 or bishop c8, one of these two moves. And then I could at least play this game onwards. Maybe I go rook a7 to stop his bishop coming to c4. And in this position, I surely can play on a bit. I don't know what I do, though. Probably a draw still. c4 and rook d3, is that an interesting way to play? In the game, after rook b8, look, I told you, computers, this is a very strong computer, Stockfish 8, and it basically says I'm a whole pawn up, which is enough to win, but it doesn't understand like a human does that in this position, it's a dead draw. It's so funny. Computers, this is why you can't always, this is a typical example of it. Don't always follow computers blindly. The computer gives this as nearly a 1.5 advantage. In a normal situation for grandmasters, international masters, international players, that's a winning advantage easily. But here, it doesn't understand it's a dead draw because I can't do anything. I can't do anything. How do you win this position? I can't. I have no breaks, so it's a dead draw. If this pawn wasn't here, I don't want this pawn to be here, then it's a clear win for me because my king can come in, but my king has no way to enter. So I think in some ways quite a interesting game that really did demonstrate some of the main ideas behind the classical Dutch, going even into the endgame. So that was opening, middle game, endgame, classical Dutch ideas, and I think I always was on top of that. And sometimes when you're black and you're on top of things, you're not always going to get the victory, but it was my opponent who had to defend, and well done for my opponent for finding that clever defensive idea at the end to save him from a rather tough ending. But I hope the ideas you've seen in this video will help you learn more about the classical Dutch, and I do really recommend, if you want to learn this opening, buy the DVD from the GingerGM shop, follow the link to my shop. It's in the description to this video. It's only £10. It's an 8-hour DVD. You will understand how to play this opening a lot more if you do so. Thank you for watching this video, and I will be streaming this week. I'm yet to confirm the times, but you can go and watch me later on, and I'll see you all again hopefully for more videos this week. I'll try to get a load more done. Goodbye for now.